All right, who's ready to talk some Twins baseball here tonight? To do so, we'll bring up our MC of the Twins Winter Caravan portion of our evening, Twins radio broadcaster Kris Atteberry.
All right, thank you very much, and you're going to have to take Morgan's word for it again. This is, 56 years of the Caravan, and I think the 55th time none of my calls made the highlight video, so I don't know who I need to talk to about that. But also want to thank Morgan Hawk and anybody who listens to our games, and we're really excited to be on here in Cedar Rapids, as you heard earlier again. Morgan's a contributor as well. He'll bring us some stories and some of the things that go on here in Cedar Rapids as we try to cover the team as best we can. Already a huge night, big win for us as a group. I managed to buy 2 boxes of baseball cards at the silent auction. Where's Dan? Dan was bidding me up on those 1990 cards. He cost me a lot of money, but it's worth it because we think there's at least 10 Dan Gladden mullet shots in those 2 boxes of baseball cards, and that's going to get us through the next 2 days. Before we bring the guys up, I do want to acknowledge the Hall of Fame inductees. Now, we do this Winter Caravan thing a lot, and we get to meet a lot of great people. To be a part, though, of such a special event here in Cedar Rapids is important to us as well. And when you look at this year's class, Chili Davis is a friend, I think, to all of us and a guy that we enjoy being around. What you might not know about Chili, before he came to Cedar Rapids, one of his best friends in the Giant system was my partner, Danny Gladden. Chili gave Danny his first outfielder's mitt. Boy, did you dodge a bullet that you got Chili instead of Danny, because Danny at 18 in Cedar Rapids could have changed the whole relationship between the Twins and Cedar Rapids all these years later. So I'm going to say congratulations on that front, and congratulations to Chili. To Lanny, as a guy who lived with the host family for 2 years in the minor leagues, I understand entirely what you're talking about from that perspective, and just the job you do here is huge, and the honor is well-deserved. Obviously, to Dwayne, I think he just did an amazing job here tonight talking about Nick, and as I mentioned to him earlier, you still can't walk into that ballpark in Anaheim and they play this video and you get teared up just thinking about it. He's impacted, Nick, an awful lot of people that he never even had a chance to meet. And then obviously Bert, as a radio guy, without the Bert Wilsons, there are none of us. And I do worry that the Twins front office heard about him being in a building across the street. There's a decent chance our booth will be a luxury suite in the coming year, and we'll be broadcasting from a roof somewhere on the other side of downtown Minneapolis. So let's keep that between us. As for the things on your table, you got a big pile of paper. The red tickets, you want to hold on to those. If you ripped them up in disgust when you didn't win the 50-50, try to piece it back together. We're going to give away some prizes, including a special one that Glen Perkins brought here tonight specifically for you. So you won't want to miss that. Also, the coupons for the hotel. The deal for the hotel. Our our bench coach, Joe Vavra, you may remember Tanner, his son was here last year. His son Trey is in the system as well. So there's a good chance Joe's going to need those vouchers. So if you can save those and you can send them to Joe Vavra with the Twins, he and his family will probably use each and every one of those vouchers to come down and watch their boys in the coming year. We've got a little conversation to have here on the front table. The conversation's going to include you. We've got microphones set up at the back of the room. So as we introduce these gentlemen, be thinking of what you want to hear from them as our night progresses. I know a lot of you are checking your phones on that Hawkeye Gopher basketball score as well. We encourage that throughout the course of the next hour. So let's get these guys up here, and we're going to start first with someone you're very familiar with. Seems like this week you can't turn around without bumping into a Maurer. How about the manager of the Cedar Rapids Colonels? He hasn't been thrown out of this place yet tonight. How about Jake Maurer? Come on up on stage. As Jake makes his way up, we're going to make sure we sit him right next to the guy who's responsible for sending him players. You heard Lanny talk about horses. Well, the guy who assigns the horses to their respective barns, he'll have a lot to say about who's wearing a Colonel's jersey this coming summer. And also, now being here, I understand why he likes coming to Cedar Rapids so much. Brad Steil is going to make his way up here. As far as our traveling crew, we're going to start with a guy who we're very grateful to have not only on staff this year at the major league level, but a guy who was able to be our tour guide through much of the drive today, hailing as he does from Waseca, Minnesota. He had that whole I-35 corridor down, and you can't turn around without bumping into a relative. How about third base coach Gene Glynn, who hopefully wears that arm out, waving runners home in the coming summer. Also here tonight, and I don't know if they did it on purpose, you saw him in the video striking out a Cedar Rapids Colonels Hall of Famer and Mike Trout. How about a big round of applause for Mr. Glen Perkins, who is here today. Glen, by the way, and I'm not saying it's going to be my favorite part of the Caravan, because the Caravan's still early, but it's going to be one of the favorites. This is such a great setup and the lighting and everything. Perk picked the one seat, or somebody picked it for him, with the light right in his face for like the last 2 hours. And watching Glen with the light in his face was maybe the best thing that I've seen in the last couple of days. So I really enjoyed that, and I know you enjoyed that as well. And finally, another former Golden Gopher and a guy who we're very excited about. He's the captain of our ship with the Minnesota Twins. How about a huge round of applause for Baseball Hall of Famer and first-year skipper Paul Molitor. We're going to get just a few comments from these guys, and then we're going to open it up to questions from you. And again, the microphones are towards the back of the room, and we're all civilized here. I figure we can figure out how to make that process work. But we're going to start first over here with Jake. And Jake, it was another exciting year here. I will note you had the chance, obviously, to manage your brother. We know a little bit about that. But coming back now for another year, the one thing I know you told me before the start of this last season was you felt you hadn't finished the job. You got a little closer to finishing that job this year as the progress continues here in Cedar Rapids.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun here last year. We didn't start out the way that we had hoped, but testament to the guys. They really kept working hard and competing every night. And as we went further along, those guys got a good opportunity, and Brad blessed us with some more arms, which was really nice of him, and really had kind of a different complexion the second half. And we got into the playoffs. We were able to win the first round. Unfortunately, lost to a pretty good club in the second round that ended up winning the league. So our boys got a lot of experience, and anytime you get a chance to play in the playoffs, especially through the minor leagues, is invaluable for our young guys.
I want to address this to both you and Brad, and obviously there's a partnership there between the manager and the farm director. So much is made in the minor leagues of development. We're developing players, but a big part of developing winning big league players is learning how to win. And Brad, maybe you could start, and Jake, you could weigh in on how you run that balancing act for the fans here in Cedar Rapids who want to come out and see their guys, but they want to see their guys not just develop, they want to see them, be competitive.
Yeah, Kris, I think that's a big part of what we try to do in the minor leagues is teach our guys how to play winning baseball. And now that starts in the big leagues, and now with Paul up there, and he and his coaches and what they're asking our coaches to do in the minor leagues, and we all try to be on the same page. And it's a balance in the minor leagues because there's sometimes when you're going to run guys out there that they're maybe going through a tough time, but that's part of the development too, of learning how to deal with failure and how to bounce back and get better over the course of a season. But definitely we want to try to put a winning team on the field every season, and I think we've been fortunate so far the last 2 years to make it in the playoffs, both years here in Cedar Rapids, and a lot of that credit goes to Jake and his staff there, and they weathered a tough first half last year with a lot of injuries, and they were playing shorthanded a lot, and they turned it around in the second half and made a nice run in the playoffs.
I think, Brad touched on it too, and obviously throughout the minor leagues is we're here to develop our young guys to play in Minnesota. And I'm a firm believer that part of development is learning how to win also. And I think that not only you're developing the player, but when you get in those tight games, how to react and what can happen and how to deal. Brad touched on failure and how to deal with umpires. I'll behave myself this year a little better, I promise. Different things like that, challenges that you face. And actually here in Cedar Rapids, too, we have a wonderful following as far as press, where most of our young men in Elizabethton don't get covered the same way as they do here. So learning how to conduct an interview and how to talk to someone, whether he had a great night or not so good night, is also an important part why we're here.
Yeah, Jake, very good points there. And I want to go to the end of the table now with Gene Glynn, who for the last 3 years has been the manager, and a great one with the Rochester Red Wings AAA. He's been a part of big league staffs with Don Baylor, with Philippe Alou, several franchises. But your first managerial job was actually just up the road. Was that or not? No, your coach, was it Waterloo? Was that one of your first gigs?
It wasn't one of the first ones, but in the Midwest League, I coached in 1988 in Rockford, Illinois, which was the Expos then. And then in 1990, I was with the San Diego Padres, which, yeah, that means I got fired in '89 by the Expos. And I was with the Padres in Waterloo, Iowa, where you guys are going to be connected now. But two great, really great experiences as a young coach. And next thing you know, about 30 years later, you're still doing it. So we must learn a lot in Iowa.
You must learn an awful lot. I mentioned Philippe Alou and Don Baylor, two guys who were important to you as guys you worked with. Now you're going to be working on Paul's staff. What did you learn from those two guys, and who are some of the other figures through your many years in the game that you feel have left their fingerprints on you?
Well, I think everybody that touches our career in a sense of management or coaching, or even players that you played with that had that really that high-level talent, and they knew how to play the game, that's just a great combination. But I did coach in the big leagues for Don Baylor in Colorado and with the Chicago Cubs. I coached in Montreal with Philippe Alou, and I also played for Philippe Alou in the minor leagues. And I also coached for Philippe in San Francisco with the Giants. And I will say this, both of those guys were not only great people, they were good players. They were almost iconic when it comes to the time frame of, if you talk about when their careers ended as players and how it's continued on now as coaches and managers in the big leagues. And I always felt there was a handful of guys like Don Zimmer and Joe Torre, and you could say Baylor and Lou Piniella, people that you really talk about in a region or across the country that are thought of as baseball people, not only as players but as managers and coaches. And I think we are going to see that in Paul Molitor too. I'm very proud to be on his staff. The one thing they all have in common are they're very intelligent people. They know the game, they relate well, and they're very serious and dedicated to baseball. But they've kind of wore that on their foreheads and had baseball written across their back. Whenever you see them, you think of the game. And I've been very fortunate to be around a lot of good people.
All right, Gene Glen, going to be at third base. And last comment just for now, Gino. As a Minnesota guy, you've worked for 4 other big league organizations, but to run out at Target Field in a Twins uniform with maybe you being related to about the half of the building that Jake's not related to, or Paul's not related to, or Glenn's not related to, what's that going to feel like, you think, for the first time wearing that home jersey?
Well, it felt really good when I was hired by Minnesota 3 years ago. But I do feel that this is going to be a great day for me and my family. Having been gone 35 years with other organizations, or up until the last 3 years, to grow up in your home state and be coaching for the team that you pulled for as a kid is pretty exciting. I think Molly touched on it at one time in one of the films. You don't grow up thinking you're going to be a coach or a manager. You always think you're going to be a player, but to me, this will be the next best thing.
Yeah, and it's pretty neat when you look at the 5 gentlemen up here with me. They've reached the pinnacles of their profession, and they're all Minnesota born and bred, every single one of them that's sitting up at the table here tonight. Not a lot of teams can say that around Major League Baseball, or really any organizations when you think about people at the top of their game. Top of his game, Glen Perkins. Glen Perkins, an all-star in consecutive years, a proud Golden Gopher, and Glen now, a little bit of a transition here with Paul as a fellow Gopher, as your manager, and the one word I keep coming back to is excitement. I feel like the players, if they said, let's push the tables to the side and start now, you guys would be good to go.
I think we are, and I just spent 3 weeks in Florida and came back for Caravan here, and I could feel it down there with the stadium they're doing, the work they're doing down there, and just all the action that we've had this winter. I think getting new leadership, a new voice in the clubhouse, and a new staff, some new points of view, new pitching coach who I got a chance to talk to. Everyone's excited, and I've talked to some of the guys, and in years past, I'd always gone down a little early. I like to get out of Minnesota and enjoy some Florida heat, but a lot of guys show up a day, 2 days before spring training starts, and this year I've talked to a handful of guys that are going to be down there 2-3 weeks early, and that's because everyone's excited. We're ready to go, and it's awesome to see Irvin Santana sign. It's awesome to see Torrey Hunter want to come back. And the difference in years past, Phil Hughes signing an extension, is guys want to be here, and guys want to turn this around, and it's an exciting time because we have the talent. We just need to put it together, and I think with Paul as our leader, he's going to help organize that, and I think we'll see some good things to come here this year.
We've talked about this through the last couple of years. As a bullpen, the Twins have been very solid, and then in the second half, just a whole lot of work for that bullpen. And the cry has been, just give us a shot with that rotation. Phil Hughes certainly did that a year ago. Now Irvin Santana joins the fray. You're looking for a bounce back from Ricky Nolasco. From your vantage point in the pen, talk a little bit about the rotation as it currently shapes up and some of the competition that's going to be in that rotation.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. We've had some decent years in the pen, but you get worn down as the season goes on, and it's a tough thing to handle. But Irvin Santana is a guy, I've seen him pitch a lot, and he's a guy that gets guys out in the American League. He's had success in the American League. Everyone was a little disappointed in what Ricky brought to the table last year. I think he's a little more focused. He's working hard this winter. He has a lot of pride, and that's one thing we saw last year. He didn't show it on the field. He would come in the clubhouse, and he's a fire individual, and was not happy with the way the season went last year. And then obviously with Phil too, the year he had, hopefully he'll be able to repeat that. And that's three pretty good guys at the front. And then like what they saw in the video with Gibby, great first year, and a guy I think that can do a lot of good things in the mound. That's four good guys. And then where it shakes out from there, that's on his shoulders. So. We're okay with that, but that's four good guys at the top, and then the fifth guy is that's having a competition in the fifth spot's a good thing. We got 3, 4, 5 guys that can fit in there, so we got a pretty good front four, and hopefully they'll all do what they signed up to do, and then they'll get the ball to our bullpen, and we'll be okay.
Yes, Santana, of course, a former Colonel as well. And finally, Mr. Molitor, we saw you there prominently featured in the video. We've been joking with you that this is like your world tour here. You've been out and about constantly and at the grind of it constantly since being hired. You mentioned at the end attitude. You can say attitude, that's just a word, but talk about the actual work that goes into building a culture for your baseball club.
After watching that video the last few days, I'm kind of tired of hearing myself talk, to be honest with you. But I think when you're in a position to have an opportunity to be in a leadership role, to have influence, it's great for me to know that guys like Glen and people that he's talked to on our team are going to come in excited, right? And a lot of that's due to some of the transition that we have in leadership. Some of it's due to the club stepping out, extending Phil Hughes and bringing in some new people to supplement our roster. But the key is we have to find a way as a manager and coaches to sustain that. I think it's normal when things change, people are going to come in, you're going to have a new influx of energy, and how are we going to find a way to keep that going? People have a tendency to kind of lose some of that enthusiasm the longer we get into spring, and all of a sudden, before you know it, you kind of can have a tendency to revert back. So we're going to try to find a way to keep it fresh, keep it new, keep it intense, still have fun. I expect our guys to be very well prepared, and I think the plan that we're putting into place to head down into spring training, which we've been working on, is going to be solid. And when we break camp to head up to Detroit the first week of April, we're going to be ready to go. I think any team that's trying to get back into a competitive situation, it will be important to try to get off to a good start and build some momentum and build confidence. We've got a lot of good pieces in place. I like the changes that we've made. We're going to keep building on that, and hopefully we can take and start to run with it.
Well, on the table, there's pocket schedules for both the Twins and the Colonels. Torrey Hunter's on the Twins pocket schedule. Joe Mauer's on the Colonels schedule, so I had to check to make sure it wasn't 2004. Turns out I'm still 10 years older and 20 pounds heavier, so it's not 2004. And that aside, we've been talking a lot about not worrying about what has happened and focusing purely on what you can control and moving forward. Explain that philosophy of yours.
Well, there's a lot of questions that you're asked when you get into this position. A lot of times it's about, okay, who's going to be the teams that you have to worry about, and then you hear, well, you're talking about changing the culture. What can you actually do that's going to be different than what PK did or Gardy did? And so you're always kind of trying to search for exactly how to verbalize things that you feel and how you plan to implement them with your team. I know that Gene Glen talks about when he was in AAA, and he's worried that he's trying to influence my style, but it makes a lot of sense, and it's kind of the way I already think. You can control one pitch and 1 out and 1 inning and 1 game. It's kind of a day-to-day thing. Now, it's how he says it and how I say it might be a little bit different, but I'm going to try to get our guys as best as they can to worry about simple things that we do in all phases of our life. We try to worry about things we can control. I can't worry the money that the White Sox spent or the Tigers have won how many divisions in the last 4 years and what Cleveland's doing under Francona, and Kansas City's coming off, 90 feet away from being a tie game in the bottom of the ninth of a seventh game of a World Series. So there's a lot of stuff going on there with other teams, but that's not what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to make our team the best that we possibly can and be ready to play and see where it goes from there.
All right, outstanding. That's Paul Molitor. Now, again, the microphones. Mike, can you stop and just wave your arms around a little bit out there? There's a microphone right behind our own Mike Kennedy here. All right, Kevin, wave your arms around a little bit. That's Kevin Smith, our fearless leader and giant Iowa Hawkeye fan. We've got another microphone over here. Obi-Wan Kenobi can wave his arms around a little bit. Yeah, thank you. Use your force. And if you have a question, you can kind of make your way to those 2 microphones. Before we get to your questions, though, as we mentioned, the Gophers and the Hawkeyes are playing tonight. We looked at this schedule. We know this is Hawkeye territory. And Kevin keeps telling us, is there Hawkeye fans here? Yeah? Kind of, right? Kevin's telling me, only wear black and gold on this flag. We're going to Hawkeye territory. His wallet, his billfold, which he really doesn't reach for very often, has a Hawkeye right on the top of it. I mean, that's how intense it is. And I'm looking around going, you're asking me to bring a couple Golden Gophers into Iowa? Like, who put this schedule together? And so Glenn and I were talking, and Glenn and Paul, as proud Gopher alums, they have a little announcement for you. They brought something for you.
I've been thinking about this. Dwayne, when he talked earlier about Nick, said that he should have been a left-hander because he could never remember his phone, could never remember his wallet. When he said that, I checked in my back pocket, and I do have my wallet, and I have my phone somewhere. I have been known to pitch my fly down. I am left-handed. He also said that Nick likes to joke around, and so I thought it'd be fun. I talked. We were up at the U. I'd gotten back on Saturday. I stopped in. I was down at the bowl game where the Gophers regrettably lost. But I talked to Jerry, and he sent me down here with a special gift to show to you guys. It's under the table. Let me get it out.
This is a Caravan first, by the way.
We brought our friend Floyd of Rosedale.
That's a work of art right there, friends. Perk thought maybe he hadn't seen it in a while, and he didn't want you to lose touch.
So y'all can come up and try to get that back next year, but...
That is handcrafted, by the way, and the base there. Glenn is quite a woodworker. He put the base together. The handwriting is his, and in fact, at the end of the night, we're going to throw that in. Glenn is graciously, on behalf of the Alumni Association,
Jerry
donated.
is. Jerry will give it away.
Yeah, we're going to give
He's
that
okay
away.
with it.
We're going to give that away later tonight, so one of you can take Floyd home. Is that all right?
That was a good job.
See, Kevin, I told you they'd let us stay after that. Start the bus. All right. In the meantime, microphones at the back of the room. These guys hear bad questions from people like Morgan and I all the time. They want to hear questions from people like you. Now, if you don't want to go to the back, you can scream it out, or you can do like this person has done. Now, I can't tell if you're short, tall, young, old. I just got the Glen Perkins glare, so just fire away right in the microphone.
Oh, I'm very tall and I'm very old. First of all, you 2 Gophers, the Hawks are ahead of the Gophers by 11 right before the end of the first half. And
We stink.
just a little bit less than the Hawks. Secondly, you don't have to worry about the White Sox this year. They'll choke it away. This is the question for Brad. It seemed to me that there's a trend, perhaps back in baseball, emphasis back towards speed. Maybe it was just that it looked like the Royals were just running on everybody. It was pretty apparent in the Royals were the in thing, of course, the way that they were sweeping through the playoffs, and of course they were running quite a bit. But of course, trends come and go. But with the couple of pieces we have in place up in the big club, and then of course our new skipper's incredible success as a ball player, And what I would hope would be, maybe his pension as a new skipper. Do you see, we've been drafting a lot of power arms, but do you see maybe trending towards drafting a little bit more in the area of speed?
Yeah, I think I would agree with you that speed's coming back into vogue in the game, and you're probably going to see it play a bigger role, similar to what you saw with the Royals this year. It's something we're always looking to add to the organization. It's not always easy to find. I think right now on our big league club, you look at Aaron Hicks and Danny Santana as two guys that can run. We also have Byron Buxton coming, who a lot of you saw play here, and he can really run. And two other guys that played here some last year, Tanner English and Zach Granite, who you'll probably see again in 2015. They're also two guys we have that have speed, but that's something we're always looking for in the draft, and it's something we'll continue to add to the organization when we have the opportunity to do that.
All right, outstanding. Now we're going to get to this fine gentleman on this side. Okay, we're going to go red shirt, and then we'll come back over to the young man here. So fire away.
This is for Paul. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
With pitchers falling like flies, are you going to do anything different, unique, to keep your staff healthy for a whole year?
When you look around the game, there's been a tremendous amount of Tommy John surgeries and different things. We see them probably at a rate that we haven't ever seen before. I think that our staff is constantly trying to do due diligence with research and information to try and find ways to avoid getting guys hurt and getting them off the field. I don't have particular insight into what that strategy would be, but we have a lot of faith in our people who are going to make those type of decisions to keep our guys out there.
All right, very good question. And now, the gentleman over here.
We have a Keenan, 11-year-old Keenan, 11, asking a question.
Jake, when you get thrown out of the game, sometimes is it just to get your team pumped up?
Well, that's a great question, Keenan. Sometimes me and the umpire don't agree sometimes, and he doesn't understand my point sometimes. I don't understand his. But sometimes you do that, Bud, just to try to create a fire a little bit, but also sometimes, too, a lot of times players get very emotional and very excited. And, baseball, when you get emotional about something, it's because you care. And obviously your players care about what you're doing. So sometimes you do it just to protect the player. Because I'd much rather have the player stay in the game and then instead of getting thrown out. So I wish I could tell you, Bud, that there's a science to it. And sometimes I get emotional too and get excited. So, but most of the time, I guess the best way to answer your question is that we just don't agree on some things sometimes.
Very good question. Now, I know Joe was down here when you got hooked once this year, but previously when Jake has been ejected, one of the best parts is you get to wherever the Twins are playing and have Joe do his impersonation of his brother getting ejected, which goes something along the lines of, "Oh, gee, I don't know about that," which is how he says you sound when you get ejected. Is that fair?
Well, sometimes. Actually, it happened when Joe was in town. And I hate to share this story, but I work with a group of 10-year-olds in Minnesota, and they happen to be down. And I always talk about being a good person, being a good teammate, leaving the umpires alone, and that sort of thing. And they just so happened to be in town. They saw a little different side of me that they didn't necessarily want to see. But I did get thrown out when Joe was in town, and while the game was going on, he came into my office. He goes, "That was awesome."
See, big brothers, the lesson, Keenan, big brothers never stop protecting their little brothers. Right over here.
Yeah, thanks a lot. This is a question for Molitor, and again, congratulations on getting this position. We're very excited for you to be here. A lot of question marks, of course, going into this season, and a lot of exciting things with a lot of great faces there, and I think a lot of players that are going to be coming into their own. Kris, one of the big questions that I have is Aaron Hicks. What's within the organization and within your staff? What's Plan B? It sounds like there's a commitment to Danny Santana over at shortstop, and he's going to do a great job, and Santana and Dozier in the middle of the infield. Is there a kind of a plan B for the organization if center field's not going to work out again?
Well, I think, thankfully, we don't have a ton of questions. Obviously, there's always going to be some competition. We have bottom end of the rotation and some bullpen spots. I think positionally, center field will be one thing that's up for grabs. I am not discounting what Escobar did for us last year at all as a shortstop. He stepped in a situation when Pedro Florimon couldn't step up, played solid defense, hit 280, 40 doubles. I'd be foolish not to have a chance for him to find a way to get at bats. In center field, I think we all still feel Aaron Hicks has major league talent, offensively, defensively, base running. A lot of guys take multiple times to and from the minor leagues before they finally figure it out. And we're all hoping that this is the opportunity for Aaron this year to do that. Now, as far as a backup plan, we have Jordan Schaefer, who got some experience last year coming over here from Atlanta. We have some other young guys in our system. You guys had a guy here a couple of years ago that maybe sometime throughout the season might prove major league ready. Eddie Rosario is a guy who's going to come into camp and I think surprise some people as to how competitive he might be in trying to win an outfield spot in our club. So, and I'm not foolish enough to say that everything's in stone with Danny Santana. I think he is best suited to be a shortstop in the major leagues. And I think we weren't prepared last year for some of the failure we had out there, and we had to put Danny out there, and he did fine. But, I think he's an infielder, and that's where I think he should be. So we'll play it out. We'll have some competition, and I think in the long run we'll be better for it.
Yeah, very good question. We got an Eddie Rosario fan club member over there, too. He's got the thumbs up for you there. Empty mic here, empty mic there. We all go home. Nope. Go for it.
Joe, Brad, is there any input you can have for us fans in that we think we see home runs hit, foul balls, all kinds of things the umpires don't see, and there's only 2 umpires. And if I'm right, I think there was only 2 in the playoffs last year. Is that a sufficient number, and will that ever change?
I think.
Right, before you answer this, there's a group of 10-year-old kids here from Minnesota.
Yeah, I'll
want you to
behave,
be
I
very
promise.
careful.
And I think Lanny can attest to this, being a former umpire. Umpiring is very, very difficult to do. And we got to take in mind, too, that you see even at the major league level where there's 4 umpires during the regular season, a lot of things happen really quickly. And down in the minor leagues, with 2 guys, it's extremely difficult to umpire. So you got to take that into account. Now, I don't know if you're ever going to have 4 umpires as far as throughout the minor leagues. Most of the problems that I have with umpires, it sounds like I don't have that many problems with umpires, to be honest with you, but they're going to miss calls, and that's just the way it's been and the way it's going to be. Most of the problems that I have with umpires is if there's enforcing the rules incorrectly, or if I'm protecting a player, something along those lines. There are numerous occasions this year you go out and ask the umpire what he saw, and sometimes he says, you know what, I really don't know. Well, what are you going to say to that, So most of the umpires that, in my opinion, that are honest with you, and if they just tell you, I really didn't get a good look at it, could have went either way, and so sometimes I ask why it didn't go our way. But, it's very, very difficult to umpire at any level, and I think you got to take that into consideration.
All right, very good question. I think we're staying on the same mic over there.
Hi, this question is for Glen Perkins. Watching the 9th inning of the All-Star game last summer, I was curious. It looked like you were enjoying it. I just wondered if you had the chance to really take in the moment and appreciate it for what it was, or if it was just kind of overwhelming for you.
The whole thing went kind of fast, and I had talked to John Farrell, our manager, the day before, and he said that he was going to try to get me the ball in the 9th inning if we had the lead. And So from really that point, it started going in my mind and hoping that things were going to work out that way. It went really fast when I was out on the mound, but when the game ended, when everyone cleared out, you know, guys are trying to get on flights, guys are going home, they're trying to get some All-Star break. I got to sit there because I had nowhere to go. So I sat in my locker till like 1:30 that night and just sat there. I had the ball in my hand, and I was still in my uniform, and just kind of, I was in there I was watching guys pack up. I mean, I was watching all the clubhouse guys pack up guys' bags and just sitting there I did take it all in. And it was an experience I'll never forget. I think personally, you know, that's as good as it can get. And you know, I think beyond that now, you know, I had told Paul earlier this fall, I don't care if I ever play in another All-Star game because I'm not going to be able to top that. And I'd like to win now. I think that's the most important thing for me and us as a team is to go out, and I'd love to be on that mound for a World Series game and see how that compares to being out there for the All-Star game.
Very good question. Yeah. Little known fact, Glenn's actually still wearing that All-Star uniform under his very nice formal wear.
No, I'm not superstitious, remember?
That's very true. Are we going back? Same mic, go for it.
What do you think about injury play? If injury play is too much in baseball.
Interleague play?
No. Replays, right?
Replays, yeah. Well, you're on a big issue.
Why injury play is in our game? I don't understand that. Umpire can give it wrong, but we gotta go to a monitor. Why?
It's a great point. Replay, it was kind of interesting last year. It certainly remains a hot button issue. And Paul, you're at the winter meetings even this year. There were still discussions about what they're doing, how they're going to tweak it as we move forward. Your thoughts on replay?
Well, I remember when it first came into the game, when the home run calls were considered for replay, I was opposed to it at the time. I just didn't know how they could differentiate someone hitting a solo home run being more important than a fair ball with the bases loaded and 2 outs in the ninth inning. But they're trying to figure out the best way to make the outcome of a game according to what happens on the field and trying to get calls right. Now, we all saw last year there were some good things about it and there were some things that weren't so good. They're trying to tweak it. They're tired of the managers having to lollygag out there and kill time until they get a thumbs up or a thumbs down. They're trying to include more plays that seem obvious that they should cover if they have the ones in there that they already do. The Major League Players Association and the Ownership Council are meeting trying to find some agreement on how to bridge some of the gaps that we have in some of the interpretation of the replay rules. So it's a work in process. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going away. To someone who is into baseball purity and letting there be error by an umpire's judgment, Bud Selig has been slow to move in the direction of change in our game, so I think he's taken a lot of time to think about this, and I think he's doing the right thing for the game before he steps out.
All right, there's replay. And now we go back to the other side.
Paul Molitor. I hate to put the pressure on you, but the old story is the great players don't make good managers, and I think you're going to defy that, and I'm really happy that you're leading the organization. So I'm not trying to put you down with saying that. I just wonder, what do you think you bring to the table as having played the game at the highest level, one of the greatest hitters ever? What do you learn or what do you bring from all of that experience that can help the Minnesota Twins this year?
Well, thank God there's exceptions to the rule, right? And there actually has been some very, very good players that have been outstanding managers. And, currently Ryan Sandberg is with the Phillies, and he's trying to make his mark. But, when you take a guy like Joe Torre, probably close to a Hall of Famer as a player and a National League most valuable player, and we all know what kind of reputation he developed as a manager, which got him to the Hall of Fame. So, I think that being out of the game as long as I have, I am far removed from being a player. I understand what these guys go through in their development in the minor leagues. I've been a part of that for over a decade. And I think I've been able to separate playing and coaching. Now, obviously, you learn from playing, and we continue to learn, but there's a different mindset and understanding today's player and being able to communicate and build relationships and hopefully respect and trust it's not about the fact that I played. A lot of these guys don't know that I played, at least not very much. There's the farther you are removed from playing, there's a gap. And so it's about, can you help me in being a better Major League player? And that's what I'm going to try to take advantage of.
All right, well said, and a nice question. And how about a round of applause for all the questions here tonight from all of you? And I'll tell you one thing that I think Cedar Rapids and all of you can really hang your hat on, not only the whole night, obviously, and the support locally for your team, but so many times you go to a banquet like this, and all the questions are for the Hall of Fame guy or for the All-Star closer. And I love that the questions came firing. The first one for the farm director, because you want to know you're going to get a good product here in Cedar Rapids in 2015. And I think that's a testament to all of you as fans and to the Cedar Rapids Colonels organization. So thank you to all of you and through the organization for having us as part of your event here tonight.